using frequencies to program water or make electrical systems more efficient. It all sounds impossible, like science fiction, right? Our next guest, Ian Percy of Verdant Technologies, is here to talk about how that is actually science fact and how we too can reach for possibilities. Of course, Ian is a possibilities coach to corporations and executive teams around the world. And he's going to give us tips on how to move from a problem-solving mindset to a possibility-thinking mindset and reveal some of how the new possibilities he's working on are going to impact the world. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Randy.
It's great to have you here. Actually, when I say it's great to have you here, I mean it in a very, very special way because one of my biggest, I'm Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer.
Yep.
I am one of his biggest fans, and the
Super
first
guy,
book that came to me when on the start of my own spiritual journey was Your Sacred Self, and I'm looking off of your book from, this book was written 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the front page it says, sensational, applied spirituality in the workplace and beyond. A great contribution. Dr. Wayne W. Dyer.
He was quite a guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So I really am super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
And I want to talk about what you do, which is out of your book. It's not what you do, it's where you're going and what you accomplish by what
indeed.
you do. And your whole career has been, you got an amazing story. But first, what are you working on right now? This sounds bizarre.
Oh, that science fiction stuff you mentioned? Yeah, I've spent most of my career consulting and speaking in the corporate world, all over the world pretty well. But I got restless and began to look at what's going on out there that nobody sees or nobody's talking about. I don't have much patience for incremental change or just improving something. I want to do something that's way out on that edge that makes people say, come on, that's not even possible. And I came across a gentleman up here in Canada who had found a way over decades of research on how to combine specific frequencies and install those into solids, liquids, and gases. And when he did that, it changed the molecular structure of that target material, enabling it to do things it couldn't normally do.
Installing frequencies. Are we talking about quantum physics?
We are talking about quantum physics, as a matter of fact. And I heard his story, and I thought, why doesn't he own half the world by now? But he's one of those brilliant, he's going to be in his little bungalow up north of Toronto, and he's going to die, and his kids are going to come along and say, what do we do with all the junk in the garage? And nobody will ever hear about this.
Wow.
And so I put a company, the Verdant Technologies, around him and said, how do we commercialize and scale this? Because it has such impact. So for example, Randy, we have a way of using specific frequencies to treat water used in crop irrigation. So all we're doing is changing the resonance of that water. And what it really does is it changes the molecular structure. It makes the molecule clusters much tighter and stronger, and that enables that water to be absorbed into the plant much faster and deeper. So you can literally increase your crop yield between 30 and 40%, cut your water back by a third, almost eliminate the need for chemicals. And there's just something magical about understanding how the energy of our world works, especially the energy of water.
Now, I think there's some people in California who might want to talk to you
about
this whole water thing.
It's a problem around the world, to tell you the truth.
So, and it's obvious that if you can make crops grow quicker and you can use less water, there's a monetary business application.
Very much so, and almost eliminate the use of chemicals. Because right now, in fact, I read a research report the other day that in the average human being in North America, they can identify 29 toxic chemicals.
Right.
Now, we got to do something about that.
Yeah, I just passed over the 30 mark, by the way. Now, but the water you're talking about, you can also recraft this water. It's still water, though, right?
It's H2O. We don't change the chemical composition. We change the structural composition of it. And what's really interesting is depending on what you want the water to do, you can program it specifically for that purpose. So, for example, if we want to treat the water that dairy cows are drinking, an average dairy cow will drink 50 gallons of water a day.
They still look heavy. You know, they're drinking a lot of water, but they're not losing weight for some reason.
But the frequencies used to do that are different than the ones used to grow crops, you see. Or if we want to water hens that are laying eggs in these big egg facilities we have, that's a different combination of frequencies again. So the magic of all this is you're literally tuning that water for different purposes, just like you would tune a guitar for different kinds of music.
Now, what about human consumption? Because I have a friend who I've actually introduced you to. He has a company called Trace, and they're putting minerals into
the water.
Plant-based minerals are being infused into their water. You told me that you could use this technology to make water work better for human consumption.
Exactly. 75% of us are dehydrated. Many of us chronically. I was reading a report the other day that something like 25% of school children they've never drink just plain water.
Right.
It's always got sugar or something in it, right? The dehydration with the senior population is their number one health issue. In fact, a lot of the times when people are diagnosed with dementia, it's really dehydration, you know. And so this is a really critical issue for people, for athletes, for first responders, for all of us, frankly. And
okay, so I run into this all the time because I'm an angel investor and run angel forums, and the most amazing, fantastic things come through those forums, you know, new breakthrough technologies.
Exactly.
This has been around and no one knows about it?
That's one of the problems that we have. Anytime you're going to be out there on the leading edge of things, you have the biggest marketing problem there is. Because when you begin to stretch people's mindsets and how we think and what we're used to and what we accept as being possible, you get into trouble.
So how are you addressing that? This is your own company.
Yeah.
You're the founder.
Yeah.
So, and you have obviously been in business for yourself your whole life as a consultant. You've consulted to major corporations, Fortune 50. You traveled all over the world. Now it's time for you to build your own company.
It is a chore, believe me. So for example, a different combination of frequencies, when we put those into water used to make concrete, concrete is the most used man-made substance on this planet. Our concrete comes back about 15% stronger than that made with normal water. Now, if you go to an old concrete guy and say, hey, we're going to change the molecular structure of your water, what's he going to say?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that we need to overcome. And that's, frankly, the challenge facing all of us in terms of how we think about what's possible in this universe of ours.
So where is your company at today, and what are you looking for?
We're still early stage, you know, even though we spent several years, you know, trying this out with different crops and situations and greenhouses and chicken farms and all this kind of thing and concrete places. So we're still early stage with it. We have two challenges right now, apart from the obvious one of raising money for this kind of thing. The main challenge is how do you language this kind of work? How do you describe it to people? Because what normally happens to me, without even my having the chance to explain it, it sounds like it's some kind of new age malarkey woo-woo stuff, you know, and then they just write it off, you know. If I were to say I have these new chemicals we can put in the water, they're in.
Right.
So it still remains a challenge.
And this is everyone's walking around with one of these now.
Yeah.
20 years ago, if we would started telling people about it, you're nuts, you're crazy.
Well, exactly right.
It's something that becomes self-evident.
Yeah. But as crazy as it is, Randy, this is where I want to spend my life. I want to spend my life out on that edge. You and I were raised by, people would say to us, well, find a problem and fix it. That's how you get to be rich, you see. And so we were taught to problem solve.
Right.
But we don't realize that if we solved every problem we have right now, all we are is caught up. That's all you got. You're just caught up. Give it a minute and you got another problem to solve. And we spend our whole lives doing this. This is a crazy way to live, you see. And it's a crazier way to run a business. Right? That's why you got the stress and the burnouts and the firefighting and all the craziness that we live through, hoping we can retire someday. Right?
So you're a consultant. You've spoken all around the world.
Yeah.
You've helped companies pull their teams together using spirituality in the workplace.
It's funny you would say that word.
So now you get to do it with your own company.
Yeah.
So now it's time to deliver on what you've been teaching other people to do.
It is. I mean, I've had to do that anyway. Because you can't get up and talk about those things without feeling it inside of you. I mean, that's where the integrity comes from, you see. So you've got to, that's what that book is all about, is my own struggles, my own journey to figure out, what am I doing here, right? And that's not been an easy trip. In fact, I don't even trust people who haven't been to hell and back several times.
Right.
You know, you got to earn this thing. Nobody gives it to you. And if we can translate that kind of thinking into not only how we run our businesses, but how we look for innovations, how we say, what's coming? And that to me is where the fascination is. How do you learn how to think about possibilities instead of just solving problems?
This company that you've started and you're rolling out, and you've got years behind you of research, really we're changing water and adapting it for its best uses. Is that one way to put it?
It's a simple way to put it. You know, when you stop
I'm
and think,
looking for simple,
Well,
because in order to get people interested, I think you have to bring it down to its core.
You're right. But let me show you a big picture of this, because it blows you away. Everything in our universe is energy. We learned that from Einstein. That's all it is. Everything is a vibration, everything. Right? Now, what if, Randy, we could figure out how to alter that vibration in some way, right, that would cause things to be different? Let's just take healthcare and where it's going down the road, all right? What if instead of you taking a drug, we had some way of measuring the vibrational imprint of that drug, and all we had to do, instead of you taking the actual drug, we just had to somehow put into your body that frequency, and it cured the problem. What if we could do that?
Well, of course, we've all heard many anecdotal stories about people being suddenly healed and healing their own cancer and so on and so forth. There's something going on there that we may not have figured out.
Yeah, and I'm pushing it a little bit past that, because people have trouble dealing with that. Because this could be a scientific, almost mechanistic thing. We could literally shine a light, you know, a laser carrying certain frequencies on a wound and see it heal. We've seen this in science fiction movies. You know, somebody gets hurt and they come in and this thing goes up and down, and the next thing you know, they're better. What if that were really possible?
Now, you, with this particular technology, you have a lot of science backing it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you actually doing with the water? Like, how do you change the molecular structure?
I have to be careful in how I describe that, but what we do, we literally, we send through a laser beam specific frequencies that the water picks up and memorizes, right? Water has memory.
Wow.
All right? And so then when that water has memory, we can figure out ways of transferring that memory out into a field or into an animal or into a human being or into concrete manufacturing.
Wow.
We know nothing about water today. We know nothing about it, and yet it's the most pervasive substance we have on this planet. Water is the common factor in all of biology.
What's the name of the company again?
Verdant Technologies.
Verdant
as in lush and green.
Verdant Technologies. That's your company.
Yeah.
Someone watching this program right now, many of them might be going, "Oh, there's a whack job guy
Exactly.
that's
I've heard that one
talking
before.
through his hat."
Yeah.
Other people might be watching going, "This guy's onto something." You're raising money right now. You're looking for investors.
Yep.
So people can get in touch with you.
Yeah.
And talk about that.
Very, very much. And if we could find an investor who also gets it,
Right.
it makes all the difference in the world.
Yes.
You know. And there are people like that. Not everybody that just thinks this is some craziness. The fact is, it's been studied for a long time.
Well, you've got the biz one-on-one vibration happening here, and we'll see what happens.
There you go.
Just before I let you go, I've got to have you tell me one of your craziest, best stories from being on the road, speaking to companies and doing crazy things all through your. You've been around for a while.
Well, the one that comes quickest to mind was with quite a large insurance company, and I was trying to teach them about possibility thinking, working mostly with the sales gang. And they kept keeping their thoughts minimal. You know, well, we'll try for a 3% increase. I said, "Oh, come on! The universe can do much better than that." You see, and this is the thing we don't understand.
Yep.
The universe that has no more trouble giving you this than giving you this.
Exactly.
All right. So you know, after a while, somebody mockingly said at one of our sessions, "Well, why don't we put down $1 billion then?" And everybody laughed. They came back the next day, and the guy said, you know, I was thinking about that overnight. If we were to do this, this, and this, there's no reason why we couldn't do $1 billion. So we got the whole sales team understanding how our mindset, our beliefs changed the real production of our work. And so they were hitting, you know, sales coming from the heavens to them. And what I had not realized, because I had failed to get IT and underwriting and all those other parts of the system believing in the same way. They weren't buying that at all. So we had this fire hose coming in here, going into a little garden hose.
Wow.
And it really killed it.
Wow.
It really did. So the secret to an organization is, how do we get everybody lining the energy toward our highest possibilities? You do that, you are unassailable.
One of the things that Wayne Dyer taught me, and many other people of his ilk, which I put you in that category, obviously, and also Eckhart Tolle, and you were one of the first ones to get a
Yeah, I met him and endorsed his book before it was even published in Vancouver. And I think, man, I didn't even know who he was, you know.
Wow.
What a shame.
One of the things that I've learned in my own, 25-year quote-unquote spiritual journey is that the only thing that stops me in achieving whatever I could want to achieve is my own limitations on myself.
It's the way you think.
Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. We don't realize, this is the point I'd really like to make if we have the time. We don't realize that everything that will ever be possible is already possible. We don't make up this stuff. We hear it and see it and find it. It's floating through this room, right? And what we need to learn how to do is kind of get out of this mindset of just looking for problems and say, wait a minute, what the universe is trying to tell me something, it's trying to give me something. And when we begin to see what that possibility is and then begin to align the energy needed to make that into a reality, that's where the magic happens.
Magic. That's what I would call this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really
Ian
good to
Percy,
talk to you.
really great.
Thank you, Randy, very much.
And of course, I actually mean that. So, wow, that was fantastic.
Well, good.